Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name is Nick, and in this video we're going to be comparing the Nike Alphafly 3 and the New Balance SC Elite V4. So the Alphafly 3 and the SC Elite V4 are two of the newer and more exciting carbon shoes that have already been released in 2024. They now sit at the top of both their companies' ranges, especially for those looking for a marathon racing shoe. The Alphafly 3 is the more expensive shoe. It's £285 or $285, whereas the New Balance is £260 or $250. Alphafly is a tad lighter, it's 220 grams or 7.7 ounces in a UK9, whereas New Balance is 243 grams or 8.6 ounces. Got a 4mm drop in the New Balance and an 8mm drop in the Alphafly, and both of them have stack heights that hit that 40mm limit at the heel. The Alphafly 3, you've got an Atom Knit 3.0 upper, which is a very breathable, open material, lots of padding around the heel and a fair bit of structure at the back there, and it hugs the Achilles quite tightly at the back of the shoe. Then in the midsole, you've obviously got Nike Zoom X foam, the PIBA foam they've been using since the original Vaporfly, along with the Air Zoom pods under the forefoot, which are the key feature that separate the Alphafly from the Vaporfly in Nike's range. Got a full-length carbon plate running through the shoe, and the midsole is now continuous from front to back, rather than having the cutouts you had in the middle of the Alphafly 1 and 2. Just a big, long, canyon-like cutout along the bottom of the shoe now. Then you've got a fast shot rubber outsole, pretty minimal coverage at the heel there with those like little diamonds of rubber, with a lot more coverage on the forefoot of the shoe there. New Balance V4 has a mesh upper with really very minimal padding around the tongue and heel. It's a very interesting heel design in particular. It's a very open one that doesn't really cradle or pad the Achilles very much at all, and it's quite noticeably different to the Alphafly and other shoes. You've now got a new version of fuel cell in the midsole of the shoe. It's now a PIBA-based foam as opposed to the different materials used on past versions of the Elite shoes in New Balance's range. You've also got a full-length carbon plate running through the shoe with New Balance's Energy Arc rocker. Again, you've got a big, long, canyon-like cutout on the bottom of the shoe, and you've got quite good rubber coverage on the New Balance. The forefoot's really well covered. You've got slightly more extensive coverage on the back of the shoe than you have with the Alphafly as well. The all-round is still pretty minimal outside of the midsole to try and keep the weight down. Right, start with the fit, and I'm now joined by Tom. Tom, what's the fit like on these two shoes?
I would say the Alphafly 3 is, I'm a size 8 in the UK. I've found the fit to be fine in my size 8, but it's an Alphafly. It's one of the most, racy shoes going, so it's a pretty tight fit. But I found the upper, I really like the upper on the new Alphafly 3. It's very, very thin. It's a little bit stretchy, but I did find them quite hard to get on initially, but once I had them on, absolutely fine. New Balance, I have found them to I'm a size 8, yep, so I found these to be absolutely fine in my size, but I did find them a little bit loose to begin with around the heel. I haven't had any problems with the fit, and once I've sort of tied them down properly, they've been fine. But yeah, I just say they just feel a little bit looser in my size 8, but I would have stick to that size.
Cool, cool. So I haven't really any problems with either of these shoes. So it's worth saying a UK9 in both of these shoes is different sizes, because in the US, a New Balance UK9 is a US 9.5 and it's a US 10 in the Nike. So you'd expect it to be a bit roomier, but I don't think that's really the case. I haven't found that anyway. I prefer the fit of the Alphafly around the heel for sure. I think it holds the heel quite nicely. It doesn't irritate my Achilles very much or anything like that. I have been able to slip it on quite well because I have quite a narrow foot. It's not really a problem for me to get this off and on. So yeah, really good fit in the Alphafly, the normal size, same size I've had for basically all Nike racing shoes. New Balance, I do think the heel is a bit loose. You can see how open it is at the back there. It's not really anything that's really gripping the back of the heel, which is a good way. It's one good thing about that is that it doesn't irritate my Achilles at all. I don't get any kind of rubbing there, which is great, but I think you can get some general skin rubbing rather than necessarily irritating the Achilles. I've heel locked the shoe and I haven't had any problems with that as a result, but it's something to look out for. Sometimes New Balance shoes can be very tight in their racing shoes. I don't think that's the case with this shoe here. Even in a US 9.5, which is roughly, I'm usually between a US 9.5 and US 10, I had a pretty good fit with enough room in the toe box for long runs. So yeah, I was happy sticking with my normal size, but maybe look out for the heel on the New Balance. On to the run test then, Tom. These are two big new launches for 2024. You've been impressed by them. What do you think?
I've been impressed by the Alphafly 3.
Okay.
So
let's start there then.
So the Alphafly 3, I think I never got a chance to try the Alphafly 2, so I'm coming straight from the Alphafly 1 here. But I think straight from the off, I can see it follows on from what I've experienced in the Alphafly 1, which is one of my favourite race shoes of all time. I've used it for many, many races and still absolutely love it. I bought a new pair of Alphafly 1s recently because was worried that I'd lose out on when they disappear. But the Alphafly 3, I think it is a fantastic shoe still. It's very fast, very comfortable. I know that you've talked about this before, and you're obviously going to go into more depth in that in a bit. For me, I'm still a bit on the fence whether it is I enjoy it as much as the Alphafly 1. I think the main reason is the heel section of the shoe. So I find it noticeably softer than the Alphafly 1. And I haven't quite worked out if that's a problem for me yet. I've only done short distance races in this so far, so I have done a longer run in this, but I've only raced in it for 10k. So I really want to do a marathon in the Alphafly 3 to really see what that new foam, well, it's not new foam, but the new design feels like. I have in all the runs that I've done in it, it has been fantastic. I really like the front of the shoe, the midsole at the front. I think it's a little bit better than the Alphafly 1. I just think it's got a little bit more pop to it. But overall, I think it is a fantastic shoe and definitely a nice progression of the Alphafly range from what I know of the Alphafly 1.
Yeah, I love the Alphafly 3 as well. I think right now it's the shoe to beat for me in the racing shoe world. I think the changes they've made, I really like. I think the new continuous midsole in particular really makes it flow a bit better for me. I get a nice tippy forward feeling from it, similar almost to the Vaporfly, but then with the extra punch and propulsion you have from the Alphafly's kind of slightly more foamy design, and then those air zoom pods at the front. I think they're better engaged in the latest version of the shoe than on previous versions, just because of the way the midsole is continuous and it drives you into those air zoom pods, and you get that big old bounce off those as well. So I do think it's a very effective shoe. It's notably lighter than the Alphafly 2, which I have tested, which is a much more of a bouncy focus shoe. It's really good really provided a lot of spring, but it didn't have the same kind of aggressive turnover I think you get with the Alphafly 3. And as a result, I just think it's more or less perfect. Like, I think every run I've done in it, I've raced twice in it, I've done a lot of hard sessions. It's just felt so good, and that's going right down to short reps, like really fast 1k reps and stuff like that, around 5k pace, a 5k race, and then to longer extended sessions with more marathon paced efforts, that kind of thing. And it's just felt really good for everything. So I do think it is all round a great racing shoe, tilted slightly more towards long distances maybe, but I think it's a very accomplished all rounder. And then comparing that to the New Balance, for me, this is a really great shoe, but I think it's coming out at a time when that's almost not enough. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the Alphafly 3. But in terms of my testing of it, I really loved using this shoe. I do think it has impressed me a lot more as time has gone on. But Tom, what do you make of the SC Elite V4?
Yeah, V3. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of this. I would never have put it in my top tier collection, and I'd never have thought about using the SC Elite 3 for like a big marathon that I wanted to do. I wouldn't have reached for it as an option. I do like the SC Elite V4. I think it is a vast improvement on the 3. I think there's a lot more similarities to most of the big super shoes that are out there for the 4. The foam is just, there's more to it. It just feels a little bit bouncier. It feels a little bit more propulsive to me. But like you say, it doesn't seem to be all the way there when you compare it with some of the other super shoes at the moment. I liken it quite a bit to the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. The Pro 3 is a shoe that, if you're comparing it with things like the Vaporfly and the Alphafly, it's a much more natural, subtle super shoe, which is what I like when I do a marathon. I really liked the comfort of it and the bounce and everything. And I think it's like that. I think it's a much more subtle shoe in comparison to things like the Vaporfly. But it's too subtle for me. I'm not really getting loads off of it. I've raced in it. I did a 10k in a weekend at it, wearing it, and it was almost there. I mean, I reckon if I did use this shoe for a marathon, I think I'd be very, very happy doing a marathon in it. But for me, it's just that marginal difference where there's still other shoes that I'd pick up instead of it from what I've tested with it so far.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I really have liked using the shoe. And the first run in it, I was tired. I wasn't on very fresh legs, but I still ran a pretty solid long run in it. And I've done a couple of sessions in it. And track session I did, the last track session, I was doing mile reps at 5:30 per mile with just 400 meters float recovery. So I was still doing the recoveries at around 6:20 per mile kind of thing. So it ended up being about 12.5k at around marathon pace of 3:33 a k for me, 5:40 a mile, and it felt really good in that shoe, very comfortable. That marathon pace, I think, really is its sweet spot. I almost feel like the SC Elite V3 had a bit more aggression to it and a faster rocker for maybe shorter stuff. It felt a bit more nimble on the foot, whereas this feels like a big bouncy shoe. It doesn't have the tip forward for me of the Alphafly or some shoes like the Vaporfly or even the SC Elite V3, but got a lot of propulsion there. It feels like a really bouncy shoe, protects legs really well. It feels very soft and accommodating, a very friendly carbon shoe, a bit like the RC Elite V2, the second New Balance super shoe, which really had, well, I thought was a great comfortable shoe, but still had a lot of pace. There's certainly a lot of pace in the shoe, and it'll do a lot of stuff really well, but it does feel quite marathon focused to me. I know New Balance is going to have the SC Pacer V2, which is going to be a slightly lower stack PIBA super shoe coming out later this year, probably I think towards the back end of the year. But for now, I do think this is really, really good. But to me, it almost comes in as a competitor to the Alphafly 2 in a way. It's like it's got a similar weight, similar kind of bouncy design. And that's come out at a time now when Nike has gone and released the Alphafly 3, where they've gone, yeah, we're going to get all that propulsion, all that stack height, the airsine pods in a slightly more tippy forward design, give you everything you had before, but also make it a fair bit lighter. And now that's what really, I think, makes the big difference for me. Is like, this is a lighter, more aggressive shoe that still has the bounce of the New Balance for me. So while I'll be delighted to run a marathon in this, it's a fantastic shoe. I really don't think you're going to lose out much compared to any shoe. I would pick the Alphafly for a marathon, 100 times out of 100. I think it's a slightly more effective shoe, but we're talking fine margins here, but at this kind of price, you're probably not going to be going and buying both of them, so the fine margins are really important. All right, Tom, verdict on these two big old super shoes.
So I think these are two fantastic super shoes. I think they're both really good super shoes. I would be happy to wear both of them for most races that I would do, but I think when it comes to how much these shoes cost, and they're both very expensive shoes now, and looking at £285 for the Alphafly 3, is it 260 the New Balance?
Yeah, 260 and $250, so it's a bit of a saving in the US.
So for that price, you are getting to the point where you're paying for the slightest bits of difference in these shoes. So if I'm paying that much money, I'm going to go Alphafly 3 all the way. I just think it's a little bit faster. It's just superior in every way for me. The Alphafly 3, and I definitely, I've got a Boston Marathon coming up. I'm probably going to go for the Alphafly 3. The New Balance SC Elite V4, I don't think I would put it in as an option. For a race that I really want to get a good time in, I'm gonna go for Alphafly 3 just because I think it's superior in performance and comfort. But having said that, SC Elite V4 is fine. The other thing I'd say is as well, I think if the Saucony Dolphin Pro 3, I think that was like $220 when it came out, wasn't it? Maybe a bit cheaper. That difference in price is noticeable, and I mean, the Dolphin Pro 3 is one of my favourite shoes, possibly even more so than the Alphafly 1. But that price is noticeable, that difference. And if the SC Elite V4 was like maybe 220, 210, then I'd say actually there's a big difference in that price. You're actually the marginal difference between the two, you're actually saving a bit of cash there. Because they're so similar in price, going Alphafly 3 all the way.
I do agree. Like, I think the Alphafly 3, like I say, I think it's the best racing shoe on the market. I do think it beats out the New Balance for any distance. And this is fine margins we're talking about, but it's an expensive shoe. So I would get the Alphafly 3. The SC Elite V4, an amazing racing shoe. If I've never had the Alphafly 3 and this was on my foot for a marathon, I would have no problems. Even with the Alphafly 3, I went and did an event and I only had the SC Elite V4. I'd be very happy to run a marathon in it. I think I would be able to deliver my best performance pretty much in it, but I just feel more confident running in the Alphafly 3. I think it's the slightly better shoe all round. As you say, comfort, I do think the one thing the SC Elite V4 might have going for it here is I think it's a very approachable super shoe. I think a lot of runners will get on with it who maybe aren't so sure about the Alphafly, maybe find it too aggressive or something like that. I do think you get a very comfortable experience with the SC Elite V4, almost harkening back to the days of the RC Elite V2, which was such a comfortable shoe and a great training shoe as a result. I think you can probably log a lot of miles in this, but I don't think it's like more durable than the Alphafly. So all round, for me, it is the Alphafly 3 in this comparison. SC Elite V4, great shoe. Really interested to see what the pace is like when it comes out, but for the moment, I think New Balance are just losing out to the best Nike shoe.